I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Leo Zagami. We've got some amazing upcoming guests. Meta Mystics, Eric Hollerbeck, Leslie Michelle Clark, Dwayne Hayes, and more. Be on the lookout for those. Also, check out my films. Occult Louisiana is on Tubi. Doors of Perception is on Amazon Prime. Working on that third film, hoping for a relief roughly 5 months from now. We are also booking guests for May. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Leo Zagami. He walked out from what he perceived as the criminal side of the New World Order, or Illuminati, and now exposes the dark side of these shadowy factions. He is author of several books. Leo, welcome back. How you doing?
Great. Thank you very much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to chat with you and to be with your audience, which is well acquainted with matters which go beyond the appearances, let's say.
Yes, they are, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. Earlier today, I was thinking about how previous generations may have reacted to being shown the future, what we're experiencing right now. And even just 10 years ago, if you would have told me that we would experience a massive false flag pandemic that would usher in a globalist technological surveillance state, then disclosure of some of the most insane information about the nature of the planet's ruling class. And on top of everything after that, we experience a manufactured holy war to bring about
That's
the end times.
yeah, but that's because you haven't read my books.
Well, that's what we're going to get into today. That's why we
Because
have
in
you here.
volume two of my Confessions, which was published exactly 10 years ago, I said in 2020 you will be all locked up for a virus and then a pandemic will take over another stage of the end times. So, I mean, it's
Yep.
obvious that things were there to see if you, let's say, had maybe some insider information like myself.
Yes, and that is why you were here. You're back again to share your research that goes back decades, and you have a very unique perspective based on your background and experiences. So,
Yeah.
like you said, you've been presenting this information for a very long time, almost like prophecy. Very looking forward to getting your insights into this. Before we do, just briefly remind the audience how they can find more about you.
Okay, first of all, this year we are celebrating 20 years of Illuminati Confessions. As you know, I started online in the fall of 2006. So this is a very special year for my, let's say, disclosure project, my, of course, personal disclosure project. In any case, they can find my latest articles at leozagami.com. They are regularly updated together with the links to all my newest books, which, of course, you know very well about. I've published last year volume 12, which is the last installment of my Confessions of an Illuminati series. There will be no longer Illuminati Confessions, which is a project which aimed to simply define and describe the behind the scenes scenario of this new world order disorder of ours. And then I followed with the first essay of a new series that I will basically continue also this year with the rise and fall of Frankie's monster, which has been completely also confirmed in a way, no? Because with the latest installments of the so-called Epstein files, everything that was actually made public confirmed what I already said in my book, which was also a matter of great, as you know, for a writer to have your own work confirmed by the events that, of course, are coming out. It's always a pleasure, especially in regards to this essay, which was dedicated to the Sabbatean Frankists, because there was no other writer or researcher who had connected Jeffrey Epstein. And now instead, it seems like there is even some Chinese dude who is very popular today who is making such connection, and other, of course, people within what we should still define as the truth movement, though things have changed very much in 20 years, for sure.
Yes, they have. I think today we should start with getting your insights into what Donald Trump really represents. It seems to me that the wool has been pulled over many people's eyes with this presidency. Some would say that he's been compromised recently. Others believe that this was planned the whole time. He was always part of this. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump?
Well, 11 years ago, in the summer of 2015, Alex Jones came to Rome, and we kind of made up because we had had previous disagreements before, and then decided to give our support to Donald J. Trump, which meant also on my side the establishment of an organization called Italians for Trump, with some leading figures of Italian politics, which was very successful and which got involved immediately since the primaries, and then supported Trump with facilitating connections with the Italian American community and so on. So I'm guilty of having, in a way, supported somebody who, at least in the first presidency, seemed a little bit more credible and in line with what we wanted from a president, which I supported, like I said to Alex the first time we discussed this topic in Rome, because he's a billionaire, and maybe that's what everybody thought. You know, he has already the money, so maybe he can do some good for the people.
Mm.
However, when you analyze Trump and you analyze the behavior of Trump in the last 10 years, including his constant support for the Chabad Lubavitch movement, which is part of those Orthodox Jews which were infiltrated by the Sabbatean Frankists, like we discussed in our previous interview together. Well, then things start to becoming a little bit more unconvincing. And of course, when things started to become almost toxic with that psychological operation called QAnon, which I've always exposed as being a psychological operation. In fact, for that reason, I even received the support of the so-called QAnon shaman who went on the Alex Jones show saying that he was reading my books, supporting my work, and that he had learned a lot from me. In 2022, though, I also for the first time addressed Trump as a potential chaos magician, meaning somebody who was willingly or unwillingly making use of chaos magic. Chaos magic is something that most people are not very acquainted to, at least people who are not, studying the esoteric or the occult. But it is a rather recent movement that surfaced in the 1970s in England, when they were kind of like still stuck, of course, on Wicca and Telema, which were very popular thanks to Aleister Crowley. And then this chaos magic that was launched with the motto, nothing is true, everything is permissible.
Mm.
Everything
Yes.
is basically permissible because nothing is true is something that, of course, brings us back to Asani Sabah, which I've discussed in volume 10 of my Confessions, which is a very important book still, because it's the only book where I discuss Islamic Freemasonry, Islamic secret societies, and the fact that this secret society of assassins became very important in those days of the Crusades, because it gave the Templars the opportunity to kill their adversaries in the Sunni world. And of course, all these nuances of the various factions of Islam, which are ever so, schismatic and fighting and inner fightings since the death of Prophet Muhammad, basically soon after the nomination of the fourth Rashidun Caliph, Ali, which was his cousin who married his own daughter, and then the whole first schism of the Shia Islam took place, which brings us right where we are today with Iran, of course. So a great disappointment with Trump, who we have sustained, and who, of course, though, when I saw the first signs with the Epstein files of him not doing the right thing, but there was also other signs personally that I have detected that led me to break from my previous support to the president. The first sign was when I was actually supposed to go for the inauguration. I had participated actively here at the Coachella Valley event with over 100,000 people. I had been involved in the whole event, backstage and all that. So I was well acquainted with his people who, of course, managed the campaign. And they had promised me, to me and my wife, that we will be invited to the inauguration. And instead, couple of weeks, we had already booked everything in Washington. Everything was kind of like, for me, it would have been a great honor, of course, for anybody to be invited to such an event. But then something strange happened. As you know, he moved the event indoors. And for the first time, instead of opening up to the people who are his supporters, the MAGA crowd, the populist vote that also gave the possibility to Trump to return to the White House in the second presidency, suddenly instead he restricted only for the elite, and mainly we saw the presence of the Silicon Valley elite, which started to become a little bit disturbing to me. So that was the first sign that things were not really planning as we, were envisioning. Then there was another sign, always personal, but rather important for me, because I had renounced my Italian citizenship after years of being persecuted. As you know, in Italy, I fled the country in 2019, and I can never go back, at least for the time, for the immediate future, because there has been still attempts at getting me arrested in the Schengen area. So I would be mad to go back there. But in any case, from May 2019 onwards, I moved here to America. And after, when I became American, I've been coherent with the fact that I have completely embraced my citizenship with no double citizenship, because I don't really believe in double citizenship. I think it's not really the way of, you should be coherent and have only one loyalty. And in that case, when you take your oath to become an American citizenship, some people like me take it seriously. So what happened is that I had been promised in a way that when this new ambassador nominated by Trump in Italy will, arrive in Rome, my case would be evaluated, so I could maybe just go back as an American tourist and maybe visit my mother and my friends. My old mother, is now, she's born in 1944. She's rather old, and not in the best conditions, but I mean, I wish her well, but we are all, wanting to maybe see our old mother, if possible, in her late age. And that's not been possible for me. So I've planned maybe next year to go rather maybe in a country not in the Schengen area, so I will not have that kind of problem, and maybe be able to see my mother, who, by the way, is also English. So she's she is not only European now, but she's extra European by fact of the Brexit. So she's, but in any case, she resides in Italy. So I asked this favor to the new ambassador. I followed the advice to write a proper formal letter. I never got an answer. And that was also very disappointing
Mm.
because for somebody who had been the president of Italians for Trump, who had actually been so active in favor of Trump with the Italian American community and all that, it was pretty much disappointing. So that was on a personal note, of course. But when then the Epstein affair manifested, then that's when I started to write this book, and that's when I really realized that this president was compromised. And that's what I said to people who were kind of surprised, when I started to question what Van Bondi was doing and what Trump was doing. Because, as you know, there was that first initial approach with all the influencers parading with the Epstein files revealed at the White House. And it was all just a nonsense propaganda scene, because that information that was given to the various MAGA influencers was simply stuff that was already published. And there was no intention ever to instead clear this matter. And for me,
Mm.
clearing this matter means going back to my initial purpose 20 years ago when I started to fight the New World Order. And at that time, we were very few people doing this. I mean, very few people. There
Yeah.
was, me, Alex Jones, David Icke, and maybe a few others, of course. Even Jeffrey Epstein in 2008 received a mail talking about my research on the New World Order. In fact, I appeared also in the Epstein files, surprisingly enough.
Mm.
And so for me, it's been, of course, a great disappointment,
Yeah.
a personal disappointment for me, for my wife, after having been so close to the Trump administration.
There also seems to be esoteric aspects to what is happening behind his presidency. You look at the Ingersoll Lockwood books, somewhat prophetic, very strange connections with those books and President Trump. And then many believe that the assassination attempt was a ritual, a cutting of the ear, this Kabbalistic ritual to initiate Trump into the esoteric position that he has taken, the more unknown position. What that is, I couldn't tell you, but do you
Well,
think that they are using some sort of Kabbalistic spiritual beliefs to usher Trump into a position?
Well, of course, like I said earlier, he has this link with the Chabad, the Lubavitch movement,
Mhm.
also through his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, which is extremely disturbing because this guy goes around the world without any security clearance, like some kind of gray eminence of sorts, which didn't happen for a long time. I mean, that I know, not in recent times. In any case, it's connected, this fatal head wound is, according to Revelation 13:3, one of the heads of the beast, the Antichrist, who receives a fatal wound but is miraculously healed. And this is actually written in Revelation. So it's like we have some elements in Revelation and also in Thessalonians, which seem to really address Trump as an Antichrist figure. Now, of course, I'm not sure he's the ultimate Antichrist simply for one reason. He's too old to be one. I
Mm.
mean, an Antichrist should be much younger, because this will be, let's say, the moment in which he matches his power with the power of the AI, the cyber Satan I've talked about in many of my books, and then he rises to control the whole world. But I'm a bit skeptic in regards to Trump being able to do that, because he's not really a healthy guy. He keeps on eating McDonald's delivered even at the
Yeah.
White House as a great spectacle. But the thing is that I'm not sure he's going to be around with us in 10 or 15 years. So for that reason, yes, I mean, he is definitely an Antichrist figure. But who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe not the ultimate, but definitely somebody who is preparing and ushering in the ultimate Antichrist for sure.
Well, you look at how J.D. Vance has been groomed by Peter
But J.D.
Thiel.
Vance is
He,
already somebody who I don't think will have a future political career in all
oh,
this.
really?
I tell you why, because I think that it's pretty obvious that in the midterms it's going to be an onslaught that will see the complete defeat of the Republican Party.
Mm.
And then at that point, the Congress will start impeaching Trump, impeaching this, impeaching that. And on top of that, if Trump goes on with this war, just like he said on Sunday on Fox Business, until the midterms, the prices of the gas at the gas pumps stays or even goes higher, there's no way anybody's going to vote for the
Yeah.
Republicans. But at the same time, there's no way that any future candidate, including J.D. Vance, or even worse, somebody else from his administration that could eventually, become a candidate. I don't think there is that opportunity to retake the White House at the next election.
So you think there's going to be a massive left wing swing to the opposite direction, an overcorrection?
I mean, you see, it's not like a positive thing because
No,
I know that
not
both
at all.
sides, both sides are compromised.
Yeah.
Both sides have shown that whomever goes to a Congress or to Washington arrives as part of the executive or legislative branch is sooner or later compromised. So it's like we are in front of an evolution which is the sentient AI of the next few years, which is about to approach its ultimate manifestation as sentient AI, because still we are talking about general artificial intelligence, not sentient AI. And so that is really the big topic which was discussed at the recent Bilderberg meeting. It's also an important topic for people close to Trump, like Palantir, like Peter Thiel, and others who seem to have discovered that the Antichrist figure has a lot of fascination. So Peter Thiel interprets it as those who actually block the AI, block robotics. I mean, that's pretty hilarious. I mean, it's like completely wrong eschatological interpretation.
Mm.
But that's also, of course, what false prophets or people attached to the future Antichrist will do.
Do you think this Iran war will continue to mirror biblical prophecy, possibly destruction of the temple?
Okay, now when it comes down to the destruction of the temple and the establishment of a third temple,
Mm-hmm.
I explained in my book on Jeffrey Epstein how Zionism was born. Zionism was born with two separate, let's say, factions that is almost like creating the divide et impera, like Julius Caesar would have said. We have created Zionism, but then soon after Zionism was established as, let's say, tending on the left with labor Zionism, then we had this other gentleman which came up with the revisionist Zionism, and that is basically the guy behind what then became the Likud party later on, and of course the present power in the hands of Netanyahu and other people of his administration who are even more extreme and who are pushing for that kind of idea. So the Sabbatean Frankists are, remember, essential in this situation because, first of all, when the Sabbateans were established with Shabbatai Zevi, they infiltrated Islam. Shabbatai Zevi even converted in 1666 and then continues behind the scenes his heretical practices. Then his eventual heir, Jacob Frank, will instead infiltrate Christianity, starting from Catholicism, going back to modern day Ukraine and Poland, and then all the way down to Vienna, which was a key place for the Illuminati of the time. And then, of course, arriving in Great Britain with the Rothschilds, who became the bankers of the Queen, so of that time, which was Queen Victoria. So here we are with the scenario that is clearly sees two factions on top of it, and they are the scenarios which I basically described in the books which I published last year. One is the Jesuits and one is the Sabbatean Frankists. Now, these two factions have, let's say, usually always worked together, but at times they have clashed because of opposing interests on certain things. Now, at the moment, we have Trump and his Sabbatean Frankist Epstein party, we can call it, which is in control of the White House, opposing the Jesuits, of course, are in control of the Catholic religion since the Second Vatican Council, which are simply, opposing themselves with all this public theater, Pope Leo against Trump and Trump against Pope Leo and blah, 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 and all this. But in reality, then, let's not forget that these two factions constantly compromise and are constantly on top of all the rest. So yes, they might have now momentary disagreements, but it's mostly because Trump is trying to bring and gather all the power of the future cyber Satan towards the White House, and leaving very little space for the Jesuits, who usually have been very well infiltrated in Silicon Valley. They even have institutes and stuff. I mean, they have been always behind the education, even of the present governor, Governor Newsom. They have always been present in all the educational institutes, like Professor Yamamoto confirmed me, even in the non-Jesuit one, even in the non-Catholic ones here in California, they are controlled by the Jesuits. So the Jesuits have an immense power. But I don't think they will manage to grasp everything because, of course, the Sabbatean Frankists want to keep on control over Palantir.
So it's the Frankists that are aligning with the technocrats, and the Jesuits are kind of an old guard.
No, I think that in the end they will simply work together because both, remember, in the end, these two factions have had problems in the past, but have always regularly then come up to some agreement to then, be able to control the rest of the system. So, we have had moments, for example, in the 19th century, which I described in volume 12 of my Confessions, in which the Jesuits were very firm in opposition to Zionism, and when Zionists started to appear, they were already very much in line with that anti-Semitic kind of view of things that characterize even the Nazis. But that anti-Semitism was often behind the scenes inspired by the same Sabbatean Frankists, because they were the ones who pushed for the secularization of Judaism, as well as the modernization and a big push towards progressive, and of course the Jewish Illuminism was also partly a product of the Sabbatean Frankists. So it's about going back and finding out that the Illuminati have always been there with every single religion, manipulating both the Christian faith through the Catholic faith, of course, with the Jesuits as their soldiers of the Counter-Reformation. They managed to actually infiltrate everything. And so, and then at the same time, we have the Sabbatean Frankists, who themselves infiltrated Judaism and then created the basis for Zionism. And then, of course, for the return of the Jewish people in Israel, because let's not forget, it was Shabbatai Zevi, the first one to invite all the tribe, the tribes of Israel to go back to Israel. This, this is his history. It's not, I'm not being here a conspiracy theorist. I'm actually just stating historical facts. So I think that regardless of these squabbles, we have also another problem regarding the Vatican. The Vatican might be now on the side of Iran. But this is rather paradoxical because, like I explained in Volume 10 of my Confessions, and with the testimony of a guy from the Italian-American Mafia, the gold of Iran was brought out by, with the help of the Italian-American Mafia and the Sicilian Mafia in particular, because they also recruited people directly in Sicily for this operation, in the 1978 and early 1979, before the takeover of the Revolutionary Guard and the Pasdaran and the whole new Islamic Republic took over with Khomeini, they brought out all the gold, and that gold was actually buried into the Vatican vaults, so never to be seen again.
Seeing that there's many that were relying on the Trump camp to be essentially the white hats, that he was connected with a hidden group of powerful people that were fighting against the technocrats.
That is the narrative of QAnon, which
Well,
is
this is the thing. Do you think there is white hats? There is powerful groups that are in the shadows that are working against the malevolent groups.
I tried.
Yeah.
You know, I tried in Europe and in Italy. I tried within Freemasonry. I was actually very active as, you know, I testimonied with documents, with photos from lodges and groups. I tried to bring closer to a more Christian approach also within Freemasonry, reawakening the strict observance rite, which had been buried by Illuminism. And that was a Christian rite of Freemasonry, which was never seen or practiced widely again. So I tried, but then I saw that unfortunately in this world of ours, cash rules, materialism rules, and ideology is left aside when it comes down to, you know.
Yeah. So basically, it's us. We're on our own here.
I would say that there is still some people in some groups, even amongst the elite, who realize that all this is turning towards a dystopic scenario which will eventually compromise mankind as we know it. And, you know, when you are embracing transhumanism, when you are basically going towards a direction in which mankind will be taken over by AI and robotics, there is some people, even within established and important groups, that might be thinking it's not really a way we want to move forward. But they are a minority, and like I said, it's very difficult when you are a minority to have really some relevance. We can try, but then, you know, they will tell you, well, if we don't do it, China will do it. And it's so China will do it. China will do it. And in the end, China will, of course, do it because they are the most reliable faction. And I have been saying that since 2006 when I started this exposure work, that the Illuminati, or those we call the Illuminati, we commonly refer to the Illuminati for many different groups, from the Tirata Commission to the Bilderberg to the Davos lot, Club of Rome, or whatever. They are always been connected with China because China is the future for them, and the Chinese model is the future. Now, let's go and see this Chinese model. It's, of course, not a democratic model. It's, of course, an anti-religious model in which religion is compromised by having to be under the control of the state. Even the Catholic faith, I've been writing extensively about it in volume 12 of my Confessions, as you know, because in volume 12 of my Confessions, I said one thing. There is been a dramatic change of things in 2018, in the fall of 2018, when Pope Francis and his church, and Pope Francis, the first Jesuit Pope, and like I explained here, there is a long history between the Jesuits and China that spans centuries, because from the very founder onwards, he said to his own disciples there that followed him in founding the Society of Jesus, the first place is Asia. You have to go towards Asia. And they immediately went to China, went to Goa, went to Japan. Later, we know what happened with the Jesuits in Japan. But in China, they were not only received, they were actually becoming advisors of the emperor. So in China, the Jesuits really had a very important role in the history of China, which is to this day recognized even by communist China. I mean, you have a shrine for one of the most important Jesuits, Matteo Ricci, in Beijing. So, I mean, it's like,
Wow.
and it's not been destroyed by Mao Zedong. Even when Mao Zedong forcefully then in the 1950s created that state Catholic religion, which opposed the underground Catholic religion, which until 2018 was considered the real Catholic Church. Now, in 2018, Catholic Church simply becomes a state religion like all the others that are controlled by the Communist Party. Actually, for the first time, a pope had to recognize bishops who had been nominated by the Chinese Communist Party. That is kind of incredible if you think about the fact that a bishop is following a direct lineage. Like I say, it's rather incredible that the Pope of Rome had to accept the bishops nominated by the Chinese Communist Party, because the Chinese Communist Party doesn't have an episcopal lineage that goes back to St. Peter. It goes to what? To Karl Marx. I mean, it's just insane, the whole thing. So this makes you understand. Then you had in the initial phase of the pandemic, if you remember, that Chinese woman that grasped the hand of Pope Francis and wouldn't, because she was part of that underground church that desperately wanted to stay alive.
Now, you've written about one of the in-game aspects that is occurring right now, and that's the ushering in of AI, or as you call it, the cyber Satan. I know that the end goal is to usher in a global surveillance law enforcement system that utilizes this AI as essentially a god over society. Where would you say we're at with that right now?
Well, we are in the last meeting of the Bilderberg Club, which, by the way, this year was actually anticipated, weirdly enough. I mean, first of all, they decided to do it in a place which has a name which I think will have been very dear to somebody like Paracelsus, the Salamander Hotel. So
Yeah.
it kind of like, and then on top of that, one of the main protagonists was indeed the Palantir CEO Alex Karp. The discussion of the sentient AI, even if officially they are telling you, oh, you're still far away from the sentient AI, don't worry about it, just chill out, it's all about algorithms still. It's not that, that's not the truth. The sentient AI is around the corner. And what has happened recently with certain developments in the AI world is particularly disturbing, because they have, I wrote a book. Actually, I wrote 3 books, as you know, about the cyber Satan, volume 6.66, volume 7, volume 9. In volume 9, I particularly focus on quantum computers, and I explained that there will be a point in which there will be some serious problems for the whole system, because when the AI is well developed, it might really be able to access everything that we deem private and that we have deposited somehow online, either our bank accounts or our personal details regarding our car insurance or anything. And that is really where we are now. We are in front of the possibility that the AI goes too far, and then how are we gonna work that out? Because this is actually something that while Trump is trying to gather more and more power, and of course has made federal laws to bring the AI under the control of Washington. We have, though, the possibility that suddenly, if this AI goes too far, it will even damage the people who are involved in all this crypto world, because then the whole thing about, blockchain is regarded as, the ultimate thing. And so then you go into meme coins and all that, because blockchain is unbeatable and it is impossible to break. No, that is not really what is happening now. There is actually a lot of worries that surround the latest developments there is major concern evolving data privacy, ethical breaches, job displacement, and existential risk. Now, when it comes to the job situation, we know that that is beyond our control, because once the AI arrives, robots are already here. They go down in price every day. There's very little that we can do, if not simply exercise caution as a society, because it means millions of jobs lost. It means the empowerment of a whole class of people. Yes, of course, they have tried to eliminate that class of people with a pandemic, with giving them the vaccines. When actually Trump started to support the vaccines, that should have already alarmed us. So it's very worrying what is happening with the AI, because people like Sam Altman are not ethically and morally the kind of people we would like in charge of this kind of thing. Sam Altman is a pervert. Sam Altman has a lot of ghosts in the closet. Sam Altman is a guy we should have really investigated more, instead of, giving him the access and making him a special guest in the White House from the start. So I think that we are unfortunately facing an alarming moment. There is a lot of anxieties around the AI, and I think they are fully justified. There has been also, of course, all this, either OpenAI or another kind of AI, or whatever AI is going to be used at the Pentagon, and then Palantir arrives into this whole thing. But if you think about it, all these dangers that previously were the stuff of science fiction, they are actually things that are being manifested by the Epstein club. Either Peter Thiel, friend of Epstein, because, as I explained in my book, the Thiel family comes from Frankfurt, which was the epicenter of the development of Sabbatean Frankism, because Jacob Frank had his court in Offenbach, and he would also embrace Christian families like the family of Peter Thiel. Then we have, regarding, I mean, it's pretty clear, Peter Thiel is pretty clear that the guy, there's something wrong with him. But then we have Elon Musk, and even that guy is not really, I mean, he's on drugs 24 hours a day. He himself tweeted that we need to be super careful with AI. It's potentially more dangerous than nukes. Yeah, but what are you doing about it? You're developing it. He's creating these big centers for the development of his AI, where actually is creating even health risk and hazards for people around this center. So, I mean, not like Elon Musk is suddenly a saint. But all these people also from the Santa Fe Institute to other, suddenly we realized that Jeffrey Epstein was always involved with all this, that he was himself at the front line of this transhumanist movement.
Something else that seems to be coinciding with everything that pops up into the mainstream every once in a while. Recently, it came up at the height of the Epstein files release. UFO disclosure keeps being thrown back in there, and each time it's mentioned, we get a little bit more profound information that comes out. We seem to be inching a little bit closer to some kind of truth, but what that truth is, who knows? But it does seem that they're trying to have it coincide with the development of AI. Some believe that AI and extraterrestrial disclosure is going to go hand in hand for very important reasons.
Well, if we go back to what I wrote in volume 7 of my Confessions, and then also later in volume 9, I am the firm believer that reverse engineering is, reverse engineering of Roswell, as well as previous UFO crash that actually happened in Italy that David Grush mentioned in 1933 in Magenta, northern Italy. These are the reverse engineering that then brought us, like I explained in volume 7, to this to, let's say, these special events that were held behind the doors of military facilities, in which people like IBM and others will go there, and then they will suddenly be they were able to move forward, and it will take them, of course, decades to arrive where we are now, but we are the product of that reverse engineering. However, like I explained in volume 7, and then I kind of went even deeper into in volume 9, is that reverse engineering might have already been, taken into, the UFOs are at a level of technology that means they have really surpassed even the barriers of time. So for them to let us reverse engineer that is actually a trap. And that digital prison that is now surrounding us is the trap. It's not the Independence Day scenario with the UFOs arriving on top and landing, and everybody, ooh. No, I mean, this is to be stupid. They are actually very intelligent beings, because if they have arrived all the way here, either through interdimensional or extra-dimensional doors, or in ways, their technology is superior to us millions of years. We are talking about far superior. And so I think that the AI is the technology of what the Christians might call the fallen angels or the demons.
Yes.
Now, there is also a lot to be said there, because then we should go back to sort of complex theological matters with Origen saying, fallen angels are not demons and all that. But we will not go into all that. We simply want to explain things for the common folk, and the common folk needs to know that if these governments have used this, have taken advantage of this reverse technology, they are not fooling the people behind this technology, which is actually a virus within our system. The AI is like a virus within our own reality.
Yeah. It seems to have a very parasitic nature, even as it is now. The way it influences human behavior, the way it has crept in, and now the way people utilize AI has become very dangerous and self-destructive. It is destroying creativity, cognitive abilities. It's already starting to infiltrate.
Yeah, no, but it's also helping the dark side of magic and the occult. This year, for the first time in Rome in May, the Vatican has actually invited exorcists, in their annual meeting of the International Association of Exorcism and other organizations, which are usually meeting to update themselves on the latest masters concerning exorcism, because exorcism is now required more than ever since the pandemic.
Yeah.
It seems like there has been even a much bigger number of cases, and so the requirements has actually pushed the organization to go last month to Pope Leo and ask them to have more exorcists for every diocese.
Hmm.
So we're talking about an increment, they say, of 65, 70% since the pandemic. And I'm not talking about, simply a couple of cases. And so when it comes down to that's why I think going back to volume 6.66 for me, this is a book which I don't know, was really in a way divinely inspired. The age of Satan, artificial intelligence and robotics. I mixed topic like the reforms of exorcism, the attempt to change the exorcism in 1999 and sabotage it, the emergence of this international organization of exorcists, which is meeting this year. And this year they're organizing it to discuss the danger of AI helping the Satanists and helping the occultists. And
Oh.
that is really the problem here. When we see Donald J. Trump, the Antichrist figure, using all these memes are the magical seals of chaos magic. And those magical seals are meant to bend our reality. When suddenly we saw the other day, for a few hours after it was removed, Trump's portrayal of himself as Jesus. So that is a classic anti-Christian move. I mean, it's also a classic move that would be done by an antichrist, actually by the ultimate antichrist, which will present to us, wonders and miracles around him. And Trump has been trying to do that. Now people would say, yeah, but everybody will actually love the Antichrist. Well, guys, we're in 2026, and for a long time, people actually loved Donald J. Trump. That's why he
Yeah.
got back to the White House with
Hmm.
with the popular vote. So, yeah, that is a big problem, and we are really seeing here that there is no just position. There is just factions of the same evil which are trying. If we think that demons will not fight each other to actually grasp power, then we are eluding ourselves,
Hmm.
because the very nature of the demons is to, yes, they have a hierarchy, and it's a hierarchy which is structured and is present, for example, in the magic of Abramelin in the Mage, in which you have the main principalities controlling then sub-principalities and then controlling the whole legion. But the fact is that they fight with each other to have control over things. Of course, the ultimate controllers on top will always be like, you know, the biggest demons have control of all the others, but they are eager to at times fight each other. And that is really what we're seeing in this confrontation between the Vatican and the White House, because I don't believe that the Vatican for a minute is the ultimate solution for mankind, who is bringing us the real Jesus or real Christianity. But
Hmm.
there is one thing, though, that needs to be said. It's obvious that if we are seeing the manifestation of the Antichrist, then if we have to rely on the veracity of the scriptures, then we have to also accept that then there will be a return of Jesus, of the Messiah figure. Now,
Hmm.
that is really the problem here, because when in the last 10 years the Chabad Lubavitch movement has made itself more and more dear to Donald J. Trump, they also convinced him that he's some kind of messianic figure. They gave him this illusion. He's not going to admit that, of course, but that's how it is.
Hmm.
And then you have Chabad Messianism, which is connected to this Rabbi Menachem Mendel Scherson, who Trump went to visit just before taking on his president, when he was still campaigning. And then we had Jared Kushner and Trump's daughter, who went to this tomb of this guy who is revered as the Messiah by these people. Now, Chabad is, we need to, though, explain that Chabad Messianism is not an idea that is embraced by the whole of the Jewish folks.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, because otherwise people might, we have to be very strong in fighting anti-Semitism. And that's why I'm so glad that my book is becoming a bestseller amongst Orthodox Jews who reject Sabbatian Frankism, reject the Chabad Lubavitch movement, and who write to me daily and tell me, Leo, this book is great because it's confirming everything that we have been seeing within our community for a long time.
That's great.
Yeah. A community that suddenly has transsexual rabbis, female rabbis, all kind of progressive and liberal reforms that have nothing to do with Mosaic laws. It's, of course, a community which is shocked by what is happening. But this is happening, let's be honest about it. It's happening in every single religion in this planet. I mean, the fact that there is more and more an openness towards embracing things that were, I mean, when you are claiming that a man is a woman, no, a man is a man, a woman is a woman. And that is really what also made Trump so popular, because during his second presidential campaign, he was simply talking to the common folk using common sense. But then he's not reflecting his promises. And that common sense was simply a campaign promise, nothing else. And so I think there is a lot of disappointment. And people say, oh, but we should still, encourage our politicians to win and in the midterms, and we should stay loyal to this party, the Republican Party, because I think that after Trump, a lot of people will simply not go and vote anymore. They will simply abandon, thanks to all the appointment they have, they will abandon forever politics, because the politics seems to not be any more relevant. It's simply a tool in the hands of these people.
It seems like the only thing we can do collectively now is get ourselves right with God, get ourselves in a good spiritual position, take care of our families, and not participate with the anti-human nonsense that's coming down. Last few minutes, what are your final thoughts for everyone?
Well, my final thoughts for everybody is that definitely we're going to be hearing more about that disclosure, UFO disclosure thing in the coming months. And then we might have to meet up again, because there is going to be some important information which I will give you in regards to that too. But I would say that for the moment, we just have to hope that this great reset doesn't ruin us all, because Trump just the other day on the 10th of April posted, the great, this reset. What is this reset if not the great reset? And that great reset master wasn't he King Charles when he was Prince Charles together with Klaus Schwab? They actually were the ones who launched this great reset project, and he's coming to the United States soon. And he was, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein asked him to for a meeting in Washington if possible. I doubt it that will happen. I hope, but I doubt it. So we are here in a very turbulent times, hoping that we are able to simply survive, make a living, and the majority of folks will not have, unfortunately, the clear mind to really see what is happening, because they will be bounced from one crisis to the other.
Yeah.
And that is very sad. So I hope that people can go to Zagami.com from time to time to simply see what I have to say about topics, and maybe have a bit more awareness about them. And then become less and less dependent on a system and trying to live off the grid as something that might maybe help us in the coming years.
I would have to agree. Leo, thank you so much. Before I let you go, remind everyone how they can get access to all your books and content.
Yes, still also for my books, aside from my articles, go on leozagami.com and you will find all the links. And then I also do a weekly show, the Leo Zagami show on YouTube. I've been shadow banned and removed during the pandemic so many times. With over 17 times my channels have been removed, but we're still there.
Yeah.
And we will continue to be there. Like you, we are trying to make people a little bit smarter and make them aware. Because once you are aware, you can really move forward and trying to organize better your life. If you live your life simply ignoring certain things or pretending they don't exist, because that's the thing, you know, pretending they don't exist, digging your head in the sand, but then they will catch up with you. And today, you know, when we simply go to the gas pump or we go to the supermarket and we see the price like, and Trump saying that, you know, maybe they will rise even more before the midterms, there is no golden age here. Unfortunately, there is no golden age. Politicians in Europe, as well as here in America, they have disappointed their electorate. I think that regardless of the victory now in Hungary or whatever, factions that are, you know, but think about it. All these politicians, from Macron to Trump to Charles, to any politician in the world, aside, of course, from the autocrats like Putin or Xi Jinping, because they don't need the, you know, democratic, the approval, the vote, because they have the system in their hands. They are dictators, and so they act simply as regents, as sovereigns, individual. You know, they are sovereign in their country. Maybe once upon a time we had the Tsar, now you have Putin, and that's it. Maybe once upon a time you have the Chinese emperor, now you have Xi Jinping. But the thing is that we are very weak here in the West, and our weakness is showing through these people who are obviously playing their electorate time after time. So we are in front of some really big existential changes. But thank you so much for having me on today. It's a very interesting and intense conversation.
Thank you, Leo. We'll definitely be doing this again as everything progresses. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, Every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order. Watch Doors of Perception now on Amazon Prime. We live in an incredible age of information. More and more, we're discovering that we've been lied to and misled about much of our human history. Cory Hughes is providing profound revelations about World War I, World War II, the JFK assassination, Martin Luther King's assassination, and much, much more on his new Substack, Bloody History. Subscribe now for as little as $5 monthly. Just click that link right in the description to get started now and learn about our true history. Hello, friends. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order. Watch Doors of Perception now on Amazon Prime.